from Mr. Jones. Anyway, my lovelies, I am Mrs. Fox, I am Pamela Cundell, and I welcome you all here tonight. How lovely for you to all turn up for this wonderful evening, and I am so pleased to be here. You know, Dad's Army was the most wonderful milestone in my life, because if it hadn't been for David Croft, who saw me in another programme with Ian Carmichael, and I played a fortune teller. And in this fortune teller, I had to say, you are going on a long journey, and wink. And that was the end of the episode. Now, David Croft happened to be in the audience and thought this wink was something. So I suppose he spoke to Jimmy, and Jimmy said, well, I don't know who she is, but let's have her on. And my first episode in Dad's Army was, Mr. Jones, have you got any sausages? With the wink. And that's how I came to be in Dad's Army. And what a wonderful time I did have. I remember one time at rehearsal, I'd been away and I hadn't been in for some time, and I came back, and I was married then to Bill Fraser, who was Snudge in Bootsy and Snudge, you may remember. And I'd been away with him, and I'd come back, and I had forgotten how to do Mrs. Fox, which was really to be me. And I was doing all kinds of things like a sort of pale Snudge, until Mr. Perry came up one day at rehearsals and said to me, Pamela, what do you think you're doing? Well, I'm Mrs. Fox, Jimmy, I'm Mrs. Fox. You are not Mrs. Fox. This is not what we engaged you for. Can just be yourself. And I've never forgotten it, because he was so right, darlings. All you have to be in this life is be yourself, and you will be a Mrs. Fox. Thank you very much.
After that, we better ask the vicar who married them to say
Thank you very much for letting me be here tonight. It's a wonderful, wonderful evening. I have to say that Dad's Army was the happiest period of my life, the happiest bit of my career, and I owe it all to Jimmy Perry, for whom I worked at Watford. Now, when I sort of do chats and things, people always say to me, what were the characters like? Were they really like that in real life? And I have to say, well, some of them were, some of them weren't. But the one person who I'd like to centre on tonight is John the Measurer, because he was really rather like Sergeant Wilson. That sort of vagueness, that sort of helplessness was John, and as it was Sergeant Wilson. And this is sort of typified for me by the time when we were on tour with the stage show of Dad's Army. John suddenly came to me one day and said, Frank, what do you do about your dirty washing? And I said, well, I find the laundry that will do it on the Monday, and I'll collect it on the Saturday. And he said, oh, I see. And then he turned to Teddy Sinclair, the verger, and he said, what do you do, Teddy? And Teddy said, well, I take it down to the laundrette. And John said, what do you mean? You sit there and watch it going round and round and round. Teddy said, yes. He said, oh, I couldn't do that. And so I said to John, well, what do you do, John? And John said, well, I sort of leave it around my room, and somehow some kind person always does it for me. And that's it. That's how to be helpless. Wonderful. John the Measurer, I loved him. Thank you.
Would you like to just come up and say a few words to us, please?
Let me apologise straight away for anybody who's actually had to come a hell of a long way, because that's all down to me. If there's a long way away from your home, I'm sorry, but I found the original location, so it's totally my fault. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, my experiences of working on Dad's Army are absolutely wonderful. I loved every minute of it. It's very difficult, I have to say, to come up with any more anecdotes, because there's so many books about Dad's Army about that most of them are in there anyway. But I did enjoy working with the cast enormously. I think those of you who've read the books will know, for example, the story of Arthur on the first day's filming, when we were leaving the Bell Hotel, and we got in the coach, and Arthur was one of the last ones to get in and was offered the case. And this is the very first day, as I say, as he got on the coach, and I was sitting in the front of it, as it were, he said actually, one of the extras at the back shouted out, "Morning, Arthur." And he sat down alongside me and he said, "Arthur, well, that'll have to change." And he subsequently said to me, he said, "I don't like this, we're talking about the public, he said, I don't agree with his hands across the footlight stuff at all." And then, of course, he did subsequently go on to do Morecambe and Wise, which is sort of rather different. And I remember discussing it with him after. He said, "Yes," he said, "I've changed my mind slightly, you know, yes, it is rather." No, he was great fun to work with, and as indeed they all were. And of course, John the Measurer was very impractical, as you probably know from reading the book. I mean, the fact that he asked me to, I pointed out that his watch had stopped on one occasion, and he said to me, "Oh, has it? Oh, could you wind it up for me?" You know, I actually went on subsequently to film with him when I was producing, directing Dick Emery. And we had a particular sequence where Dick was in bed in this particular sequence, and Arthur had to point a gun at Dick, standing at the end of the bed, and pointing a gun at Dick, and he said, "Hand over the bracelet." And then during the rehearsal he said to me, "Hang on a second, Howard." He said, "Look, I'm holding a gun." He said, "How can I actually take the bracelet?" I said, "Well, you're holding the gun, John, in your right hand, you take the bracelet in your left hand." And he went, "Oh yeah." It's not the first time it ever dawned on him, you know, that he actually had two hands, really, understanding that. One last little story was nothing to do with Dad's Army particularly, but when we were going to the possibility of doing a spin-off of It Sticks Out Half a Mile, I actually got in touch with Arthur, and he said, "Oh yes, come discuss it with me, come down and see." And he had this boat called the Amazon, as you probably know, on the Thames. And it was up a dike off the main river, and it was being painted. He was very proud of the fact that he just had new loos put in it, and he showed me around the boat and whatnot, and they were painting up the one side that was, as I say, along the dike side there. And at one point, while he was showing me around, they said, "Oh, Mr. Mannering, we want to turn the boat round so we can paint the other side." So he said, "Oh, this will be interesting." "Yes, all right, Harold." He said, "So we'll take the boat out into the middle, all right?" He said, "Yes, of course, come on, Harold." He said, "Come aboard." "Yes, we're going out there, we're going to turn the boat round and bring it in the other way." So we went out, reversed out into the main river at Teddington, or round about that neck of the woods, and suddenly the engines broke down, and they couldn't get the damn thing to work. And there we were across the river, and he was going absolutely bananas, absolutely ballistic. "This is absolutely ridiculous, this is ludicrous, call themselves this, that, and the other." Went on and on and on, and he could be quite angry on those sort of occasions. I mean, he was a lovely man, but he did have occasions when he flipped his lid, and he had very straightforward, shall we say, rules. I remember when the dustmen went on strike, he said to me, "You should shoot the bloody lot of them." And but having said that, he was a lovely man, and it was a great fun work with him and all the rest of the cast. They were all wonderful, and we had, of course, to thank Jimmy and David for wonderful scripts, absolutely wonderful. Thanks very much, folks.